Hi, my name is Mike Novak. I couldn't be at the presentation today. I got admitted to the emergency room yesterday. On Tuesday, I had a seizure and stamp. And they said they were going to keep me here for 24 hours, and I got admitted yesterday at 5 p.m. So I most likely won't be able to make the presentation. So I'm doing a video. As we just discussed, the 4 stages of functional alcoholism, they are drinking to get drunk, number one. Number two, drinking as a coping mechanism. Number three, isolation, depression, and legal problems. And the fourth stage is when you begin to see changes in the appearance of the alcoholic. They begin to have different medical issues ranging from high blood pressure to liver issues, liver failure in very severe cases, things like that. So my father, stage one, always drank. And his goal when he drank was never to just, have a beer or three. It was to, maybe have 5 beers and a couple shots, and then after that he would be kind of intoxicated to the point where he would continuously order and order and order, to the point where his tab sometimes was $60 to $100 just for him. So yeah, it would get insane. This past summer it actually got really, really extremely bad, like out of nowhere. I do believe some of it was related to company stress because he was IT director and he assumed another position as the ticket manager, so he was essentially doing 2 jobs, each which paid around $90K a year, and he was essentially doing both of those jobs, but only being compensated for one. So you can imagine the stress still. Yeah, he didn't control his drinking at all. It was very common for him to bring a bottle of wine home per night and finish that in an hour, if that. At work in the beginning, he was still managing, but he was very, very stressed as he was doing 2 full-time positions. He was very stressed. Oh, and he was working a weekend job, so he was working 7 days a week in addition to the 2, IT director and the other very demanding position in the IT department at his law firm. So yeah, he had a lot on his plate. He was still managing though, not going into work obliterated, not missing work, nothing of that. Sorry, dropped the phone. And his relationship with me and my mom was still fairly, we were just concerned. We hadn't seen it at this level before, so we were concerned. But we thought maybe it was just, maybe a 1-week phase. And then once he, next week he'll be fine, or, in 2 weeks he'll be fine. So we didn't think it was anything super serious. But then we began to realize that he was actually he began to justify his drinking with his work stress. I mentioned earlier that the drinking was a result of, the buildup of pressure and workload he was having at his job. But this does not allow you to drink like an alcoholic. But he was using the stress he was under at work as an excuse for him to drink excessively. So this is a direct effect of his drinking before and during work. Like I said before, a bottle of wine per night, 5 to 6 times per week, was not uncommon during this time. This was last summer, so summer of 2016. And then on to the 3rd stage of isolation, depression, legal problems, emotional and psychiatric issues. In this stage, I'm going to discuss the legal issues my dad got into, which was a DUI, and apparently, sadly, this was his 3rd one. Well, his 2nd DUI, and he had 1 DWI, and he had to hire lawyers. They were super expensive because he didn't want a breathalyzer, so he had to get really, really, really good lawyers. Good thing is, both my parents worked for law firms. Also, my mom and dad barely talked anymore. My mom talked to me on numerous occasions about my mom and my dad getting divorced. She mentioned it probably 6 to 8 times, maybe 10. I never really gave her my full thoughts and opinions on it. I didn't want to tell her that it would make me sad because I didn't want to prevent her from going through with it and staying in a marriage if she was miserable. So that's why I kind of held back how I really, really felt about it. But that didn't end up happening. I'll talk about that a little later. I stuck actually by my dad's side during this time very, very closely. My dad was out of control. I have never seen my dad like this in his life. He was actually, during these few months of summer 2016, he was actually worse than my Uncle Tommy. So bad that I had to install a GPS tracker on his phone because he would go to work down in Baltimore. Like I said, he works on the weekends in Lexington Market. I don't know if you know Lexington Market, but that's kind of the junkie heroin capital of Baltimore. I was just very worried about him, his safety. I knew he was acting very erratic. His behaviors were very, very extremely erratic. So I was just very concerned about him. And there was numerous occasions on which he just wanted to come home. for sometimes not for a night, sometimes not for just a few hours, but nevertheless, it still gave me extreme anxiety. I panicked. Because earlier in the summer he was admitted to an emergency room after an altercation with two men on the streets. And he threatened to beat them up, and so he had got barred from the tavern in my neighborhood, which was for throwing a chair at two men across the bar. So yeah, his behaviors had become extremely erratic and violent. So that's why I was so concerned about his safety. So I really stuck by my dad's side out of concern and just to make sure he was safe. Just like my cousin Ashley stuck around my Uncle Tommy's side, and catered to him, make sure he's okay on a daily basis. At one time I actually had to run around Baltimore like a maniac with a GPS tracker to his phone, trying to find him. I almost got a parking ticket, but the lady, I told her what was going on and she let me park there. Then I actually was walking by the police, so I asked them if they had seen him. I was going in and out of bars. I must have went in 25 different bars that day. I went in at least 5 different strip clubs looking for him. I went into a few hotel bars, I don't know, maybe because he knows I was looking for him. He knows I had done that before that summer, so maybe he had chosen something that's not normal, something that's a little tucked away. So I checked hotel bars, and the GPS only gave you like a little range circle of where they might be in a radius, but for some reason, by the grace of God, it popped up at his exact location, and he was probably 3 blocks away from me, 3 or 4. So as soon as I seen that, I just started booking it. So I ran all the way up the hill. I stopped on the way and asked. I said, "Do you guys know where this is? This pin on this map? Do you guys know exactly where this is?" But I was like very frantic, and they were kind of like afraid, kind of scared of me because I was acting kind of crazy. But so I just ignored them and just kept following the GPS instead. Ran up the street, and when I looked across the street, when I got to the top of the hill, I saw my dad just standing on the corner with a cop. You're clearly not supposed to do that. So we had a cop, and when I walked over to him, he was talking to 2 little kids. One was like 6 or 7, the other may have been 8 or 9, and they were asking my father for money because when my father's drunk, he likes to give out money. Maybe the only good thing about him drinking. So I, whispered to the kids. I told them, to go. My dad has no money. And while I was looking for my dad, there was this kind, homeless black man that was helping me out, helping me, navigate Baltimore and going to the different strip clubs to look for my father. So he was along with me when I found my father. But like I said, my father had been acting erratic over the past few months. So when he saw that I was with another person, he started, lashing out. He was asking, who the F is that guy? I'm gonna F him up. I'm gonna, F and kill him. Like, yeah, he was actually going super, super crazy. So I asked the guy just to please walk back. I mean, I was like literally just so nervous that something was gonna happen. I'm just like, please stay back. So yeah, that was a particularly stressful time for me. And during that time, I was taking 7 credits at University of Maryland, and so I was commuting from Baltimore all the way to College Park 5 days a week, from 11 a.m. until 2. So it was exhausting having to deal with him and his multiple admissions to the emergency room, his admission to the psychiatric hospital, which are both results of his drinking, his fights that he got into at the bar in my neighborhood, at the bars downtown, on the streets in Baltimore, his lack of presence in the family. All of this are the signs and stages of being a functional alcoholic, and I would actually classify my dad as a functional alcoholic. On the contrary, my Uncle Tommy might be somewhat of a non-functional alcoholic, due to the severity of his drinking and how long it's been going on. My father, these severe problems that I had just discussed with my father were only going on for this past summer of 2016 and a little into the fall, but not much. So he's never been this severe before. He's always been, a drinker, but it's never been to this severity. So this sort of really impacted my mother and I significantly. I was very, very stressed out the entire time. I was having panic attacks. When he was missing and I couldn't find him, I'd have panic attacks. I would go home, lay in my bed and cry. I didn't start drinking. Actually, I started despising drinking because of, I just seen how it affected my dad, and I just started to despise it for what it does and how it can turn a very nice, genuine, kind person into someone that they're not. And it really turned my dad into someone who he's not. And he acted in ways that he would not normally act or behave. So I was actually turned away from alcohol. But I did start smoking weed to try to deal with some of the emotions. I know that wasn't a good choice on my part, because reacting to one of your parents' alcohol abuse by using substances yourself is not necessarily super healthy. So But I did find that smoking relieved the extreme distress and feelings of panic, um, and the feeling of caring so much. I'm not saying that I didn't care about my father when I smoked, but I'm saying that I wasn't panic in a panic frenzy, like breaking down, looking for him, going crazy in Baltimore, driving like a maniac. Because when he was missing in Baltimore, I would be driving crazy, acting crazy. Not only was he acting crazy because he was under the influence, I was acting crazy because I was on adrenaline to find my dad. I was destined, I was determined, and I was just so panicked and frenzied that I did next to anything to find my father. So that is my personal experience with a parent who is a functional alcoholic. But I would like to say that my father is now doing much better. He was taking medication for, I think, anxiety, and it was apparently causing manic episodes. I'm sorry. It was causing manic episodes, which explains his erratic behavior, grandiose ideas, his spending loads of money on alcohol. His not having a problem with being away from my mom and me for 2-3 days at a time. Not caring about going into work drunk, drinking at his job, drinking wine 6 times a week, a whole bottle per night. But since then, he's improved immensely. Me and my mom went to a few Al-Anon sessions, and my dad goes to AA now, and he also goes to another support group. I forget what it's called, but he does that also. So he does too, and my mom do Al-Anon whenever we get a chance to meet up. And there's one going on. We'll try to go to it. And we also do family counseling, and that's really helped us a lot. Helped us explain how his drinking affects us, and how he feels about it, and his regrets, his sorrow for doing it. And so it's just been an immense improvement from what was going on. But if this had continued to go on for the rest of the year, last year, and continued into this year, and was still going on, then this would probably result in him lapsing into a cycle like his brother, my Uncle Tommy, who is got probably only a few years to live left. So that was my personal statement, and I hope it gave you some kind of insight as to the different areas of families that are impacted, the children, the parents, by alcohol use, and how a functional alcoholic can still have very detrimental and negative emotional and psychiatric effects on the family unit. Thank you.